A couple of hundred years ago, we were in the agrarian age, the age of agriculture. And after, maybe 100 years, that then evolved into the industrial age. And that lasted for a period of time. And now we're in the information age. During the agricultural age, there were those who held power by owning vast tracts of land, and they were called the land barons. During the industrial age, there were the captains of industry that owned the vast manufacturing plants and factories. Now, in the information age, the power is not held by any small group of people. The powers of information and of the access to information is available to everyone. And amusingly, it was signified in a way, symbolized in a way, by the personal computer that was made available for anyone to own about 20 years ago. And the symbol for that personal computer was the apple of knowledge with a bite taken out. Now, the information that we're getting in this wonderful age of information has to do with communication and technology. It has to do with science and medicine and the environment, the ecology. But it also has to do with new information flooding our universe about what it is to be a human being and what it is to be a spiritual being, what new information from new sources about spirituality. So the topic that I'm going to focus on today is spirituality in the information age. The name of this show is Living Wisdom, and I'm Patty Paul. It might be helpful to get some background information on the kind of information, spiritual information, that we had up until this time. By understanding that, it will help perhaps to understand the kinds of new information about spirituality that is available to us at this time. So in the past, and I'm going back thousands of years to the present time, we had spiritual information that came from the male-dominated societies that began to arise about 6,000 years ago. Archaeological evidence has shown that going back 6,000, 10,000, 24,000, even 30,000 AD, there were many pockets of civilization, small cultural people, small cultures that is, of people who lived in those various time periods, who had art as a part of their daily lives. They were mainly agrarian people, lived off of the land, raised domestic farm animals. And in those cultures, those ancient cultures, they also were very spiritual people. And spirituality was a part of their daily lives. As I say, this is evidenced by discoveries that began to be made in the 1970s, when archaeologists had new techniques for recording and identifying, and through carbon dating, getting the actual dates of these old ancient civilizations. They were peace-loving, and there appeared to be no hierarchical distinction between peoples or between races. They lived in harmony, and they lived in harmony with each other and with the land. And then archaeological evidence also has shown that about 6500 BC, several invasions began from what is now the southern part of Russia. Invasions by men on horseback who came down into Central Europe, where these formerly peace-loving cultures existed. And things began to change, beginning with the first invasion that was about 4300 BC. Male domination began. And over the next 3,500 years, 2 more invasions from this same area helped to shift not only the nature of the people that lived there, but also their focus on men as being the dominant and therefore superior forces in their expanding population. Now, this is what I'm talking about here is not about blaming men for changing the world. Not at all. We each have had many lives, hundreds if not thousands of lives. We've been men half the time in those lifetimes, and we've chosen to be women half the time approximately in our various lifetimes. So we all participated in this great shift of consciousness that took place. And the result of that shift in consciousness to appreciating men as being more powerful and dominating in the various societies, that produced what we call patriarchal civilizations. And for the last thousands of years, we've had patriarchal civilizations, and over that period of time, the patriarchal attitude got twisted and distorted into what is called male chauvinism. That means that men eventually became valued over women. Anything masculine, men, and any principles that were masculine, like action and doing and will and those assertive kinds of energies, were considered superior to anything which could be described as feminine, which includes women. It includes feelings, emotions, which are feminine energies. They're not available only to women, they're available to everyone. But because they have this feminine characteristic, they were deemed to be inferior. Now these were, shall we say, perceptions made on not always the conscious level, but on the unconscious and subconscious levels of the mind, because each of us does have a mind that exists on multi-levels. The point that I'm getting at is, in the old form, the old paradigm of the world, which arose from the male domination, from the patriarchal civilization, the patriarchal civilization that got twisted into a male chauvinistic mindset. From that came a perception of the world that was based on a need to control. In order to maintain a position where one authority, male authority, is in charge, control and containment were needed to support that and to keep the status quo. And then, in order to control and contain that mindset, that state of being, that reality, force was needed. Force and domination. And force and domination to control the people who were seen to be under the power structure. Power in the old paradigm of male patriarchy and male chauvinism is held by men, but a relatively small number of them, so to speak. And those that were not part of that controlling hierarchy needed to be controlled and contained and forced and dominated. And in order to make that, keep that prevailing situation, the spirituality that once had been personal for each being, now it was thought that it needed to be organized into one form of spirituality and organized into religion. A religious, so that in a way captured the hearts and souls of the people who were being dominated by the hierarchical power structure in the old system, again, that has lasted for thousands of years. So organized religion began over time. The Christian religion, for instance, was formalized into a text called the Bible, which began, that formalized written text began about 400 AD. And that text was written and rewritten over many centuries by many groups of men. And in that text, in order to stay in alignment with this perception that there can be one supreme being, a supreme being was created and represented in that Bible. And because male domination was the controlling force, why the dominant figure, the supreme authority, was deemed to be a patriarchal figure, a father god. And that father god was then endowed with human characteristics. Human characteristics, and unfortunately some of those were the worst of human characteristics. The judgmental, the critical, the violent, the capricious. A father god was invented who rewarded or punished. And then to kind of seal the deal, it was said to those who were then urged to subscribe to this belief system that if they dared question it, they would be guilty of heresy and blasphemy and punished and go to hell. And so each of us has those memories, those words ringing in what could be the higher levels of our conscious mind, the subconscious, the unconscious levels of our conscious mind. So the old information age, shall we say, patriarchal in nature, chauvinistic in nature, which established organized religions that supported this and created a God, a father God I shall refer to, And then they endowed this Father God figure with the worst of human qualities. Qualities. I think I need another eye in here. There we go. But we're in the new age of information. Things are changing. There is a tremendous shift in consciousness underway. And it's not the age of information that has brought about the shift in consciousness. It is the shift in consciousness, the spiritual evolution that's taking place, that has brought in the new information, that has, shall we say, created a space for the new information that has advanced, as I said before, has advanced communication, technology, science, and the many other areas. That space is filled with this information that also is giving us new sources that can give us new answers about what it is to be a human being. No longer the subservient human being that relied on a hierarchical power structure to tell us how to live our lives, and that gave us rules and regulations in the form of organized religion. Now, each of us has the opportunity to access this new information and to be more independent on our own spiritual path. A few years ago, I wrote a book called A New Spirituality Beyond Religion. And I did a lot of research for this book, including the information that I referred to earlier about the archaeological findings that supported how this shift in consciousness took place over thousands of years, from what was once a peace-loving, harmonious time for thousands and thousands of years, and how that evolved into a male-dominated world. And I talk about that in one of my chapters in this book. But in my book, I also share a lot of the incredibly valuable information that I personally have gained on my own spiritual journey from some unconditionally loving and infinitely wise teachers. Some of the teachers who are available, who are sharing this new information that I'm referring to. One of my teachers that I found in 1986 is named Lazarus. And so a lot of the information that I've written about in the book is what I had learned to that point of writing the book from Lazarus. But there are many teachers, and every human being has an opportunity to connect and to open up to the new information and the new teachers who are available. I love sharing the information that I have, and the reason that I'm so enthused about my own spiritual path is that I have learned that by putting into use the information that I've gained in my personal life, by changing what hasn't worked for me up till now and replacing it by the new beliefs, the new attitudes, new thoughts and feelings, for instance, that I have been able to change my life. I've been able to heal the past and change my life and bring about amazing success. And whatever I can do, anyone can do, and more. So that's why I'm so enthused about sharing the information that I have. Some of the new information that is so helpful, and it is ultimately it's empowering, and that's the important point, that this is empowering information that helps us to be independent as spiritual beings. So we don't have to turn to other people's rules and regulations. We don't have to rely on old beliefs that have been handed down from parent to child. We can find our own beliefs, make our own choices about our own spirituality. But the basics of what I've learned is that each of us does create our own reality, every bit of it. And again, science, the latest discoveries in science going back the last 60 years show that our world actually is a holographic illusion made up of particles of energy that are moving, even though while we're within this hologram, it all seems quite solid. But as anyone learned in their first few science classes, everything is made up of atoms and subatomic particles and molecules that are continuously moving. And another thing I write about in my book, exactly the details of this. Of course, in this half-an-hour show, I don't have time to fully describe and do justice to that subject of how the world is really a hologram that each of us creates. I'm just giving an overview in this half-hour time period. But part of the information that I'd like to share today is that it is through our beliefs and attitudes, I'm abbreviating here, thoughts and feelings, choices and decisions that we partially create our world. These are what we call the raw materials of creation. Everybody has these. If what you create in your life, in your personal life, and even on the world stage, if you don't like what you have created, it's possible to go back and change your beliefs. My writing here is terrible. I apologize for that. It's possible to get in touch with all those suppressed feelings that we weren't supposed to feel, because feelings are feminine and that means they're no good. In this shifting consciousness, even the feminine is becoming more and more appreciated these days. So there's been a lot of talk about the value of getting in touch with the repressed feelings, and they certainly are one of the raw materials. So it's possible to change any of these things in order to create the successful and happy life that you might want to have in place of what you've created right now. In addition to the raw materials, we have what are called tools: imagination, desire, expectancy. And there are ways of sharpening those tools and getting in touch with them and actually using them to work with the raw materials. It's a very complex process, but in its complexity is the ease of making these changes, because you just deal with pieces of this at a time. And there are many books that have been written. They're available in the libraries on how to create the reality you want. Again, my book, A New Spirituality, talks about many of these concepts that I've been talking about today. So it's all a matter of your own choice and your own decision on whether you want to take your power back from the old hierarchical systems that have been trying to keep control of everything, and whether or not you personally want to open yourself to the new information, the new help, the new teachers that are available, and create a whole new world. All the doom and gloom that we've been brainwashed with over a long, long time, means nothing. All you have to do is not believe it and decide to change and create the future you truly want. That happy, joyous future filled with love and success. And it's all a matter of choice, all a matter of your choice. So again, I apologize for not being able to go into the detail here in this short period of time, but I've hoped that I've given you enough information to at least pique your curiosity. And I want to thank each and every one of you for your attention, and I want to say goodbye until the next time.